On a quiet park bench, the young lawyer was enjoying a book when two policemen arbitrarily detained her. Their arrogance turned into a nightmare, but fate had a surprise in store. Months later, she became the judge in their case. Will she be able to preserve justice when the power is in her hands? It was a crisp spring afternoon in Seattle, the kind where the sun spilled golden light over Lakeview Park, coaxing families outdoors and filling the air with the hum of life. Kids darted across the grass, their laughter mingling with the rhythmic thud of joggers' sneakers on the winding trails. Near the shimmering lake, 28-year-old Tanya Wilson sat alone on a weathered bench, her dark chestnut hair catching the breeze. In her hands was a worn paperback, a rare escape for the young attorney whose days were usually spent buried in case files. She was lost in the pages, the world fading into a soft blur, when the sharp wail of a siren sliced through her peace. A police cruiser screeched to a stop at the curb, its tires kicking up gravel. Two officers stepped out, Ryan Kelly, broad-shouldered with a buzz cut, and Matt Harrison, wiry and tense, his hand already resting near his holster. Their eyes scanned the park, narrowing as they zeroed in on Tanya. She was the only one sitting alone, an easy target amid the bustle. A few heads turned, curiosity flickering across the faces of onlookers, but most went back to their picnics and playtime. Tanya barely noticed until Ryan's voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding. "Ma'am, we need to talk to you," he called, striding toward her with purpose. His tone wasn't a request. It dripped with suspicion, like she'd already done something wrong. Tanya lifted her gaze, her hazel eyes steady as she marked her page and closed the book. "Of course," she said, her voice calm but edged with curiosity. She set the paperback on her lap, waiting. Matt stepped closer, his posture stiff. "We got a call about suspicious activity in the area." "What are you doing here?" Tanya's brow arched slightly, a flicker of disbelief crossing her face. "I'm reading," she replied, lifting the book as evidence. "Is that suspicious?" The officers exchanged a glance, their expressions hardening. "Can we see some ID?" Ryan demanded, his hand outstretched. No explanation, no softness, just an order. Tanya felt her pulse quicken, a familiar unease tightening her chest. She'd seen this script play out before, in courtrooms and client stories, but never as the lead. "Why?" she asked, keeping her tone even. "What's the reason?" "It's routine," Matt snapped, though his clipped delivery suggested otherwise. Around them, a small crowd began to form, joggers slowing their pace, a mom pushing a stroller pausing to watch. Whispers rippled through the air, a mix of confusion and discomfort. Tanya sighed, reaching in her bag with deliberate calm. She pulled out her wallet and handed over her driver's license, her fingers steady despite the heat rising in her veins. Ryan snatched it, reading aloud with a mocking drawl. "Tanya Wilson. What's your business here, Miss Wilson?" He dragged out her name like it was a punchline. "I live in this city," she said, her patience thinning but her voice firm. "I came to enjoy the park. Is that a problem?" "We'll decide if it's a problem," Matt shot back, stepping closer. His hand hovered near his belt, a silent threat. The crowd grew. Phones emerged, lenses glinting in the sunlight. Tanya caught the eye of a teenage girl filming, her expression a mix of shock and defiance. The air thickened with tension, every word a spark threatening to ignite. Then Ryan lunged forward, grabbing her arm. "You're resisting," he barked, though Tanya hadn't moved an inch. "What are you doing?" she exclaimed, startled but rooted in place. Her book tumbled to the ground, pages splaying in the dirt. The murmurs from the crowd swelled into a chorus of unease. "Stop resisting," Matt shouted, louder now, playing to the audience. Cold metal bit into Tanya's wrists as handcuffs snapped shut. Her heart pounded, humiliation and fury warring inside her, but she kept her head high. The officers yanked her toward the cruiser, ignoring the growing protests from the onlookers. Tanya twisted just enough to lock eyes with the girl holding the phone, a silent plea to keep recording, to bear witness. The car door slammed, trapping her in the suffocating back seat. Through the window, she saw the park blur into streaks of green and gold, her reflection staring back with steely resolve. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The police station smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant, a sterile contrast to the chaos still buzzing in Tanya Wilson's mind. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the booking room where she stood, wrists still raw from the handcuffs. Officer Matt Harrison leaned against the counter, smirking as he handed her paperwork to sign. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," he said, his voice laced with condescension. "Sign it, and maybe you'll get out before midnight." Tanya's hazel eyes narrowed, but she kept her composure, scrawling her name with a steady hand. Inside, her anger simmered, a slow burn fueled by every snide remark, every unnecessary shove since they dragged her from Lakeview Park. Ryan Kelly lingered nearby, flipping through her ID like it was a trophy. "Tanya Wilson, attorney at law," he read aloud, chuckling. "Should have known you'd be trouble." "Trouble?" She shot back, her tone sharp but controlled. "I was sitting on a bench with a book. You're the ones who turned it into this." Her words hung in the air, unanswered. The officers exchanged a glance, their smugness unshaken. They didn't need to justify anything. Not here, not to her. The booking process was a deliberate grind. Fingerprints pressed into ink, a mugshot snapped under blinding light, her personal items confiscated with exaggerated care. Each step stripped away a piece of her dignity, but Tanya refused to break. She memorized their faces, their badge numbers. Ryan Kelly for 172, Matt Harrison 519, etching them in her mind like evidence for a case she'd already begun building. When they finally shoved her into a holding cell, the metal door clanged shut with a finality that echoed in her bones. "Enjoy your stay," Ryan called over his shoulder, his voice dripping with mockery as he walked away. The cell was a concrete box, cold and barren, with a single bench bolted to the wall. Tanya sat, her hands clasped tightly, replaying the park over and over. Their baseless accusations, the crowd's murmurs, the click of those cuffs. She'd spent years defending clients against this exact abuse, but now she was the one locked up, charged with resisting arrest and obstructing an officer. The absurdity gnawed at her, but beneath it was a bitter truth. This wasn't random. It was prejudice, plain and ugly, dressed up in badges and protocol. Hours crawled by, marked only by the distant hum of the station. Then a young officer approached, clipboard in hand. "Wilson," he said, his tone flat. "You're being released on bail. Resisting and obstructing, court dates pending." He unlocked the door, avoiding her gaze. "On what evidence?" Tanya asked, standing slowly. Her voice cut through the silence, demanding an answer. "Take it up in court," he muttered, turning away. She exhaled, forcing herself to stay calm. She knew these charges were flimsy, legal sandcastles that wouldn't hold under scrutiny, but she also knew the system didn't always care about truth. Outside, the night air hit her like a slap, cool and sharp against her flushed skin. Her best friend, Lisa Carter, waited by the curb, her short blonde hair glowing under the streetlights. "Tanya," she called, rushing over, her face a storm of relief and fury. "Are you okay?" "Physically," Tanya replied, though her voice trembled slightly. She hugged Lisa tightly, grounding herself. "But I'm not okay with this." Lisa pulled back, searching her friend's face. "What happened in there?" "They humiliated me," Tanya said, her words clipped. "Made up charges, treated me like a criminal, all because I was there alone, black, and dared to question them." She paused, her breath visible in the chilly air. "But I'm done being their punching bag." As they drove away, the city lights streaking past, Lisa kept stealing glances at her. "You're scaring me a little," she admitted. "What's going through your head?" Tanya stared out the window, her reflection fierce against the glass. "That video, the girl recording, I bet it's out there already. People need to see it. And I'm not letting those two walk away from this." Lisa's grip tightened on the wheel. "You're going after them?" "Legally," Tanya said, turning to her. "I've got the law on my side, and I'm tired of this happening, to me, to anyone. They picked the wrong person to mess with." That night, Tanya sat at her kitchen table, a cup of tea cooling beside her as she scrolled her phone. The video had exploded online. Grainy footage of her arrest, captioned "Seattle PD targets innocent woman." Comments flooded in. "This is outrageous. Same thing happened to my brother. Justice now." Her chest tightened with every share, every cry of support. This wasn't just her fight anymore. It was a spark, and she'd make damn sure it caught fire. The days after Tanya Wilson's arrest blurred into a storm of action and emotion. Her cramped Seattle apartment had become a war room. Legal pads strewn across the dining table, laptop glowing with case law, and a whiteboard scrawled with timelines and names. Ryan Kelly and Matt Harrison. The viral video of her arrest had ignited a firestorm online, racking up millions of views and turning her into an unwilling symbol. Strangers messaged her with their own stories. Traffic stops gone wrong, baseless searches, bruised wrists, and broken trust. Each one fueled her resolve, but the weight of it pressed against her ribs like a vice. She was mid-sentence, dictating a draft of her civil rights lawsuit to her voice recorder when her phone buzzed. It was her attorney, Greg Hensley, his voice tight with urgency. "Tanya, you sitting down?" "Yeah, why?" she replied, pausing the recording. Her stomach nodded instinctively. "You've been assigned as a judge," Greg said. "A misconduct hearing, excessive force case. Guess who's on the docket?" Kelly and Harrison. The room tilted. Tanya gripped the edge of the table, her breath catching. "You're kidding." "Nope. It's scheduled for next month." Unrelated incident. Some kid they roughed up during a traffic stop. "You're on the bench." Greg paused, then added, "You could recuse yourself. Conflict of interest, given your lawsuit." Tanya's mind raced, a chaotic swirl of anger and opportunity. She pictured the officers' smug faces, their hands on her arms, the cold snap of cuffs. Now she'd be the one holding the gavel, their fates in her hands. It was poetic, almost too perfect. But could she do it? Could she sit above them, impartial, when every fiber of her screamed for payback? "I'm not recusing," she said finally, her voice steadying. "I can handle it." Kayak sighed. "You sure? This is a tightrope, Tanya. One slip, and they'll say you're biased." "I know the law," she snapped, then softened. "I'll play it straight, but I'm not running from this." That night, she met Lisa at a dimly lit cafe near Capitol Hill. Rain streaked the windows as they huddled over coffee, the air thick with the scent of roasted beans. Lisa leaned forward, her blonde hair tucked behind her ears. "You're really going to judge them?" "If I back out, it's like admitting they broke me," Tanya said, stirring her cup absently. "I won't give them that." Lisa frowned, her blue eyes searching. "But after what they did to you, can you be fair?" Tanya's jaw tightened. "Fair doesn't mean weak. They'll get what they deserve by the book. No shortcuts." The next week, Tanya threw herself into preparation, not just for a lawsuit, but for the community. She started attending town halls, standing in packed rec centers as people poured out their frustrations. One night, a lanky teenager named Jamal approached her, his hoodie pulled low. "Miss Wilson," he asked, voice hesitant. "I saw your video. Those same cops, they beat me last year. Fracture my arm." No one listened. Tanya's throat tightened. She touched his shoulder gently. "I'm listening now, and I'm fighting for all of us." Word spread fast. Her inbox overflowed with support. Her name whispered in protests and prayer circles alike. But the pressure mounted. Every step toward justice felt like a tightrope over a chasm. One misstep, and she'd lose everything she was building. She couldn't just win. She had to win clean. Then, a curveball. Lisa burst into her apartment one evening, phone in hand. "Tanya, look at this." She shoved the screen forward. A blurry photo circulating on X, showing Ryan Kelly at a bar, laughing with a group of off-duty cops. The caption read, "No worries, we've got this handled." Posted hours ago, already retweeted thousands of times. Tanya's blood ran cold. "They're mocking it," she said, her voice low. "Mocking me. Or they're scared," Lisa countered. "Try to look tough because they know you're coming." Tanya stared at the image, Ryan's grin searing into her. She grabbed her laptop, pulling up the misconduct case files Greg had sent. The victim, a 19-year-old named Jake, had been pinned to the pavement, ribs cracked, all for a broken taillight. The parallels to her own arrest were uncanny. She slammed the laptop shut, her hands trembling, not with fear, but with a fire she could barely contain. "I'm not just suing them," she told Lisa, her voice rising. "I'm going to expose them. Every lie, every bruise they've left on this city. And when I'm on that bench, they'll wish they'd never crossed me." Lisa grinned, fierce and proud. "That's my girl. But promise me, keep it legal. No revenge, just justice." Tanya nodded, though the line between the two felt razor thin. Fate had dealt her a wild card, and she'd play it with everything she had. Underscore. The courtroom in downtown Seattle hummed with anticipation, a low buzz rippling through the packed benches. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, glinting off the polished wood of the judge's bench where Tanya Wilson sat, her black robe a stark contrast to the chaos she'd endured. Today wasn't about her lawsuit. That battle loomed ahead, but about the misconduct hearing for officers Ryan Kelly and Matt Harrison. The air crackled with irony. The same men who'd cuffed her in Lakeview Park now faced her judgment, their uniforms crisp but their confidence fraying. Tanya's gavel struck once, silencing the room. "This court is in session," she announced, her voice clear and commanding. Her hazel eyes swept the space, lingering briefly on the defendants. Ryan's broad shoulders stiffened, his face paling as recognition hit. Matt shifted in his seat, his wiry frame coiled tight, jaw clenched. They'd expected a routine hearing, not her. For a split second, Tanya felt the thrill of their unease, but she buried it. This wasn't revenge. It was justice, and she'd wield it sharp and true. The prosecutor, a wiry man named Paul Ortiz, rose first. "Your Honor, Officers Kelly and Harrison are accused of excessive force against Jacob Torres, a 19-year-old student, during a traffic stop. The evidence will show a pattern of abuse. Unprovoked, unjustified, and unchecked." He gestured to Jake, seated near the front, his slight frame hunched, eyes darting nervously. Tanya nodded, her pen poised over her notepad. The defense attorney, a slick-haired woman named Claire Dunn, countered smoothly. "Your Honor, my clients acted under pressure, believing Mr. Torres posed a threat. This was a split-second decision, not malice." Her tone was polished, but Tanya caught the flicker of doubt in her eyes. Witness testimony began with Jake. He took the stand, his voice shaky but firm. "It was late, maybe 11 p.m. My taillight was out. I didn't know. They pulled me over, and before I could say anything, Officer Kelly yanked me out of the car. I hit the ground hard. Officer Harrison pinned me down, my ribs cracked. I wasn't fighting. I just kept saying, 'I'm sorry, I'll fix it.' They didn't care." Tanya's grip tightened on her pen, memories of her own arrest flashing. Ryan's sneer, Matt's hand on his belt. She forced her focus back, scribbling notes. "Did you resist?" Ortiz pressed. "No," Jake said, shaking his head. "I was scared stiff. They decided I was trouble before I even opened my mouth." Claire stood to cross-examine, her tone probing. "Mr. Torres, isn't it true you raised your voice, maybe moved suddenly? That could have alarmed the officers." Jake's eyes flared. "I didn't. I stayed still. Hands up, like they said. They just went at me." The room held its breath as he stepped down. Then came the officers. Ryan took the stand first, swearing the oath with a tremor in his voice. He avoided Tanya's gaze, focusing on Ortiz. "Officer Kelly," the prosecutor began, "explain your actions that night." Ryan cleared his throat. "I thought he was reaching for something, maybe a weapon. It escalated fast. I made a call that broke his ribs." Ortiz snapped. "He was unarmed, compliant. You saw a threat where there was none, why?" Ryan faltered, glancing at Matt. "At the time, I thought it was justified. Looking back, I could have done it different. Could have." Ortiz pressed. "You tackled a kid for a taillight. Was that your training or your temper?" Ryan's silence was deafening. Tanya watched, her face a mask of neutrality, though her pulse raced. "Next," Matt took the stand, his answers clipped. I back my partner. That's protocol. We de-escalated when we could. De-escalated. Ortiz shot back, holding up photos of Jake's bruises. This is your restraint. Matt's jaw twitched, but he had no reply. Tanya caught a shift in Ryan's posture. His head dipped, a flicker of something like shame crossing his face. She wondered if it was real or rehearsed. In recess, the officers huddled with Claire in the hallway, their voices low but frantic. She's got it out for us, Ryan hissed, rubbing his neck. This is a setup. It's not, Claire snapped. It's a coincidence. But your story's falling apart. Fix it. Back in session, closing arguments sealed the tension. Ortiz's voice rang out. Your Honor, this isn't one mistake. It's a pattern. Kelly and Harrison abused their power, leaving victims like Jake in their wake. The badge isn't a shield for brutality. Claire countered weakly. They're human, not perfect. Punish them fine, but don't ruin them. Tanya adjourned for the day, her gavel's echo lingering. We'll reconvene next week for a ruling. As the room emptied, Ryan lingered by the door, catching her eye. Your Honor, he muttered, barely audible. I didn't mean for this. She held his gaze, unflinching. Prove it with actions, not words. He turned away, shoulders slumped, and Tanya stayed at the bench, her notes a lifeline. The power was hers now, but so was the burden. Justice hung in the balance, and she'd carry it, no matter the cost. A week later, the Seattle courtroom was a sea of hell breaths. Every seat was taken, from reporters scribbling furiously to community members clutching each other's hands. The air buzzed with the weight of what this moment meant, not just for officers Ryan Kelly and Matt Harrison, but for a city watching Tanya Wilson's every move. She entered in her black robe, the fabric rustling softly as she ascended the bench. Her hazel eyes were steady, her expression carved from resolve. This was it, the ruling that would ripple far beyond these walls. She struck the gavel once, the sound sharp and final. Court is in session, she said, her voice cutting through the silence. Ryan and Matt sat at the defense table, their uniforms crisp but their faces drawn, Ryan's broad frame hunched, Matt's wiry hands fidgeting. They'd spent the week whispering denials and deflections, but now they could only wait. Tanya took a breath. Her notes spread before her like a map to justice, and began. The role of law enforcement is to protect, not prey upon, the people they serve, she said, her tone measured but firm. When that trust is broken, it fractures communities, leaving scars that last long after the bruises fade. This case isn't just about one night. It's about a pattern. Her gaze flicked to the officers, who shrank under its weight. The evidence is clear. Officers Kelly and Harrison used excessive force against Jacob Torres, an unarmed teenager who posed no threat. Their actions were not a mistake. They were a choice. The room stirred, a murmur of agreement rippling through. Tanya pressed on. Testimony, photos, and their own admissions paint a picture of recklessness and disregard. Mr. Torres suffered cracked ribs for a broken taillight. That's not protection. That's punishment without cause. She paused, letting the words sink in. This court finds them guilty of misconduct. Ryan's head dropped, his hands clenching into fists. Matt stared ahead, jaw tight, as if he could will the words away. Tanya outlined the consequences with precision. 6-month suspension without pay, mandatory retraining on de-escalation and bias, and a permanent disciplinary mark on their records. Accountability starts here, but so does the chance to change. Her voice softened slightly. I hope you take it. The gavel fell, and the room erupted. Cheers, gasps, a few muffled sobs. Jake Torres, seated near the front, exhaled shakily, his mother pulling him into a tearful hug. Reporters surged forward, pens flying, but Tanya's focus lingered on the officers. Ryan stood slowly, catching her eye. I'm sorry, Your Honor, he said, voice rough and low. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a crack in the armor. Matt followed him out, silent, his defiance crumbling. As the crowd thinned, Tanya stayed at the bench, gathering her papers. The victory felt heavy, not sweet. She'd won this round, but the war against injustice stretched far beyond one case. That evening, she drove to a community center in Rainier Valley, where a meeting was already underway. The room was packed, young activists, weary parents, kids with wide eyes. All their talk about what came next. Tanya slipped in quietly, taking a seat near the back. A woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled into a bun, spotted her and waved her forward. "Judge Wilson, please say something." Hesitant, Tanya walked to the front, the room falling silent. "Today was a step," she began, her voice steady. "Those officers face consequences, but it's not the end. It's a start. For Jake, for me, for all of us who've been dismissed or hurt. We keep pushing legally, loudly together." A young man stood, his voice trembling. "They stopped me last month. No reason, just harassment. You're giving us hope." Tanya smiled faintly, her throat tight. "Then hold on to it. We've got work to do." Later, as she stood on the center steps, watching dusk settle over the city, Lisa joined her. "You did it," she said, nudging her shoulder. "They're shaking in their boots." "It's not about them," Tanya replied, gazing at the skyline. "It's about this." She nodded toward a group of teens nearby, holding signs that read "Justice Now." The video of her arrest, Jake's story, this ruling, it had sparked something bigger. Over the next weeks, community leaders met with police brass, hammering out reforms. Body cams, transparency, training. Tanya spoke at rallies, her words a call to action, not anger. One quiet night, she sat at her kitchen table, a letter in hand from Jake. "Thank you," it read. "I'm not afraid anymore." She set it down, a small smile breaking through. The system wasn't fixed, not yet, but it was bending. And she'd keep pushing, one lawful step at a time, until it broke toward fairness for good.